All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for March 22nd, 2018. Let's begin with our draft minutes of the March 14th meeting. I will move to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Minutes are approved. On to our consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, we have 5 items on the consent agenda this morning. Items 1 through 4 are filings from Choice 1 Communications Resale LLC, Deltacom LLC, Conversant Communications Resale LLC, and CTC Communications Corp. They're all requests to de-tariff their regulated retail services stemming from case number 9414. And finally, item 5 is the Eastern Utilities Commission filed an application for a CPCN exemption for its wastewater treatment facility solar array in Easton, Maryland.
Any questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And for items number 1 through 4, I move that we grant the company's request to de-tariff their regulated retail services. And for item number 5, I move that we approve, nunc-pro-tunc, the construction of the requested generator that the Commission finds meets the requirements for exemption from the CPCN requirement as set forth in Section 7-207.1 of the Public Utilities Article.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The motion carries.
First item on the administrative agenda, item number 6, is Charles County Government filed a request that the Commission regulate Charles County taxicabs.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Lloyd Spivak with the Commission staff. As a result of the rulemaking on taxicabs last year, staff did some research looking into the availability of taxicab services in Charles County and discovered there were some taxicab companies operating there, and we were not certain at the time whether or not the county actually regulates those cab companies. So the Transportation Division sent the county a letter, and the filing that's being considered now is a response to that letter. It indicates that Charles County does not, in fact, regulate taxicabs, and requests that the Commission begin the process of licensing taxicabs and taxicab companies and drivers. Staff has reviewed the filings, and in light of the information we have found on the county taxicab regulation in the county, staff recommends that the Commission grant Charles County's request to begin the process of issuing permits and licenses to taxicab businesses within the boundaries of Charles County, effective today.
All right, thank you. Questions? We'll start with Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you. Several years ago, St. Mary's County requested similar action. They didn't want to regulate locally, but it required a statutory change to the public local law in the legislature. Was that required? Anybody look to see if Charles County has statutory authority? They only allude to regulatory authority.
No, that was not actually checked. At this point, I think we're fairly clear that the Commission has the authority to regulate in counties that do not regulate taxicab services.
I agree with that, but we couldn't regulate, and the Commission could not regulate in St. Mary's County until we changed the statute for St. Mary's County. We have the authority. The Commission has the authority, but the local law superseded that because it was granted by the legislature.
I think, given that the request is coming from the county's attorney's office, that they have looked into that and they're satisfied that is the case.
Fair enough. Maybe we could just follow up and verify.
We can do that, Commissioner.
Okay, I'm satisfied, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, this is a question maybe for Ms. Gee. Do we have a sense of how many taxi cabs are out there in Charles County that would have to be permitted?
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Right now, it looks like there's 2 cab companies in Charles County operating, and they each have roughly about 10 permits apiece, so it's not a real large number of cabs.
So they have 10 taxis operating?
Each company appears to have about 10 cabs operating.
Okay. And in terms of, assuming that this is approved and the Commission begins to regulate them, will there be any type of cap on the number of permits that will be allowed in Charles County?
Well, we're kind of assuming that it'll be sort of the same way that Cumberland and Hagerstown operate right now. There really isn't a cap there because it's such a small jurisdiction. They don't really have that many cabs. So what normally occurs is when they want a permit, they request each permit that they want, and then there's we do an investigation to see if there's a need for that permit.
And how would inspections, vehicle inspections be done? Would they be done down in Charles County?
I assume that we would probably do that. I mean, right now with the with Baltimore City, Baltimore County, they come here to do the inspections here. Cumberland, we usually go there to do inspections, so I assume it would be the same type of situation.
Okay.
You know, if they're adding a vehicle, they may need to come here or go to one of the locations that we're at, but you know,
Okay.
we haven't really gotten quite that far yet.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Any, Commissioner Richards?
Yeah, I just feel they're interested to know what the transition period entails, or what it entails, and then is there a time that they have to meet the requirements? And I'm thinking about, for instance, are we going to require, just like in Baltimore, that they be able to have do credit card payments, and do they have other requirements already in place?
Well, we would want some direction from the commission on all that as far as a time frame. We would think that it would take probably at least like a 90-day period before they would even get to the point where they would be able to be licensed by us, just to get them on board and then submit the information that they have. We have to figure out what the rates will be. So we'll have to solicit from each company what they are charging now and then submit that to the commission to come up with a fair rate for Charles County. So we're thinking it would probably be about like a 60 to 90-day time frame before they would even begin the licensing process.
Oh, okay. So we don't have necessarily a uniform requirement across the state for fares and for
No.
equipment, that type of thing.
Right. No, it's pretty much each jurisdiction has the rate based on what the neighboring jurisdictions are charging. So.
I would note with respect to equipment, that would be the same for all the jurisdictions where the commission regulates. With a few minor exceptions, there were some differences between Baltimore County and City. I think having to do with mostly with the shields between the seats, but we've been trying to make that more uniform.
Okay, but like technology, like requiring credit card payments, that is something that is required across the state for at least every place that we regulate.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Right. Now, Hagerstown doesn't, their cabs aren't required to have meters in it, but they're the only jurisdiction that doesn't have meters. Charles County, they currently do have meters in their cabs.
Okay, and we'll be giving them, you said, a 90-day transition period?
Well, whatever the commission decides, but, we're assuming that it will probably be about a 90-day time frame.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else for staff? If not, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move we grant Charles County's request to begin the process of issuing permits and licenses to taxicab businesses within the boundaries of Charles County, effective March 21st, 2018.
I think you want to make it the 22nd.
22nd, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last item on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, is item 7. It's CenturyLink Communications LLC, filed a notice to expand previously approved financing arrangement.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Kenneth Albert on behalf of staff. This item addresses a filing by CenturyLink Communications, I'll refer to them as CLC, that notifies the Commission regarding the expansion of financing arrangement associated with $9.9 billion of debt that CLC's direct parent, CenturyLink, Inc., incurred as a result of CenturyLink Inc.'s acquisition of Level 3 Communications. Now, this is yet another one of those telecom reorganizations acquisitions that we see routinely here. The Commission has authorized CLC to provide facilities-based and resold intrastate, local, and inter-exchange communication services. The transaction is related to an existing assumption of liability by CLC in connection with the prior acquisition. As we note in our comments, the acquisition satisfies the criteria in the Public Utility article for exemption from the requirement for Commission approval. We've looked at this transaction, and it does provide more capital to the telecom in Maryland, CLC, so we believe it is in the public interest. For that reason, staff asked the Commission to note the transaction.
All right, thank you, Mr. Albert. Any questions for staff? If not, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the commission note the transaction, the financing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, last item.
That's it.
Thank you. We are adjourned for now. We will be back at 1:30, and we will continue our hearings for case number 9468.